Assembling packed furniture is one of my favorite things to do. It's miles ahead of cooking in the list of my favorite things. It's relaxing and therapeutic for me. I enjoy it so much. I want to use this chest of drawers to be hiding all those things that I usually throw on the bed or on a nearby seat by default whenever I come in here to change. My dad passed away in the early hours of 2nd March this year, 2020. So come with me, let's assemble this IKEA chest of drawers together while I tell you about my father. So this is what I'm going to set up. This chest of drawers with the usual IKEA instruction. That's the big box. These are the bits and pieces. It's like solving a puzzle. And these are the other pieces. So from my IKEA experience, this should be easy peasy. You just follow these drawings according to the number. This is number 1. I've done number 1. I've attached this white stuff. Then that's number 2, and so on. My dad was the purest and the most unassuming human I know. He was practicing feminism decades before the word became popular. I'm sure he did not know the word feminism, not to talk of knowing what it meant. But he believed that everyone, especially women, should be treated equally. He was orphaned at a very early age, so he lived with relatives where he received a lot of ill treatment and discrimination. So he had a late start in life. And because of that, the glass ceiling he created for himself was so low. He believed that certain achievements were out of the reach of orphans, but he was able to team up with my mom, whose belief is completely the opposite. And the family achieved feats my dad originally believed were reserved for the non-orphans of the society. He lived in the city of Enugu as a single man. And when he and my mom got married, he could not bring her to the city immediately. My mom was living with her mom in the village at that time. But he said his wife would not be pregnant while living in the village, that she would suffer. He did not want his wife or any of his kids to suffer in the hands of relatives like he did. They had me 2 years later after my mom had joined him. Later, they had my brother, and my mom went off to teachers training college. During the 3 years that my mom was in school, my dad was the one taking care of us, I and my brother. Even though my auntie lived with us, my dad was such an independent man. He did not believe in gender roles. He cooked for us, fed us, bathed us, prepared us for school, and took us to school before going to work. His stays with relatives where he did all the work prepared him for this role. In fact, as I'm saying this now, I can vividly recall, I have such a photographic memory that I can recall things that happened even when I was 5 years old. I can actually visualize my dad right now scrubbing the back of pots. You know the black soup that is usually deposited by kerosene stoves on the back of pots? He would clean our kerosene stove every Saturday. Pour out the kerosene, bring out the wools, or is it called wicks? Yeah, wicks. He would wash them and spread them out to dry. I would ask him why he cleaned those too, and he would tell me that if they were dirty, the stove would be giving off a yellow and red flame, causing more soot on the pots. But if they were clean, the stove would produce only the blue flame. Maybe today I begin learn everything about cooking. He preferred doing things himself because he did not believe anybody else could do it better than him. He washed his own clothes, cleaned the house by himself. You would be sweeping the house and he will come and take the broom from you to show you how to do it better. Before you knew it, he had finished sweeping the whole house. In those days, windows had louvers, those louvers that took the longest time to clean one by one. He would patiently clean them I and my brother capitalized so much on him taking over that we will pretend not to do it right. So he will come and show us how to do it. And you know what that means. He will just complete the task for you. To everyone, he was the perfect being, the man of peace, the man of truth. And he was so handsome too, madre mia. There's one woman that was always looking for my dad's trouble. She would remove the trees at the boundary of their landed properties and kept encroaching into my father's land. Whenever my dad came back to the village and saw a new tree that the woman had planted on his land, in the villages, trees are planted at the legal boundaries of lands. So the woman will remove the trees at the boundary, then plant new trees in my dad's property, thereby making it look like that's where the boundary is, hence slowly encroaching into our own land. Whenever my dad came back, he would uproot the trees and throw into her land for her. Then she will march to our gate and start cursing my dad out. Can you imagine someone caught stealing from you? Instead of hiding her face in shame, she will come to yell at you. So she will come to our house to insult my dad for uprooting the trees she planted. One day, we asked him what he did to this woman, that she was always looking for his trouble. He told us not to mind her, that the woman's love for him turned to hate. There's a cultural practice in Igbo land where a woman can be made to bear children in her father's house if the father did not have a male child. So they make one of the daughters stay behind, that is, not get married, so she can have children that will bear her father's name. So he told us that the lady's family approached him, propositioned him, so that she would have cute kids like him as the handsome man that he is. But he refused, that's my dad refused, telling her or them that he would never touch another woman apart from his wife. And then the woman hated him from that day. He told us not to mind her acting crazy, that it's love in disguise. He was also once in Joseph's kind of situation. You know the story of Joseph and Potiphar's wife? Yeah, my dad was once in that kind of situation. Handsome man problems. My dad gave us all nicknames, and we sometimes call each other those names till today. He nicknamed my brother Nigerian from his name. He would call me Flossie, which is a combination of my first name and a name they said they would have given me. I'm not going to tell you the name. My mom revolted against the name so much, listing all the funny names that kids would have coined from that name and used those to bully me. So it's not today that women started guarding the names of their children jealously. And she won, and I was not given that name. He nicknamed my sister Maka because he wanted to make sure no one called her Amaka, saying that Amaka was a name for notorious girls. I do not really blame him because at that time, it looked like all the girls that were called Amaka in our neighborhood were wayward. The jury is still out on the Nigerian definition of waywardness. So he didn't want his daughter to start misbehaving like those girls when she grew up. So he called her Maka and insisted that everyone called her that instead of Amaka. He nicknamed my brother Chiji International because he foresaw that he would go places. He was called that name so much that my brother, who just started talking at that time, if you asked him his name, he would say, "My name is Chiji International." And he nicknamed my last sister Bundo from her name. My dad introduced me to the 1980s rap music, or I don't know if it's rap music or pop music, I don't know what to call that genre of music. Every Sunday, after meticulously dusting and polishing his Trident, or is it Trident, cassette player, he will be blasting those kind of songs. The one that always played in my head whenever I remember my dad is Beatwave, Rock the Nation, Beatwave, the combination, Beatwave, coast to coast, coast to the stereo, Beatwave. No man is an island. Oh, oh, everybody coming to. Yeah, Bonnie M, all those songs. My dad was such a mellow person that with another woman as his wife, he may not have been a good parent. We may have all become, I don't know what we would have become, a menace to society. His mind was so pure, without prejudice. With him, we would have gotten away with anything. For instance, you could have told him, Dad, we are going to so-and-so place for 2 days for a school excursion. He would believe you. But my mom was the one with the eyes of a hawk that you wouldn't even think about lying to. Great combo, yeah? Yeah, they made a great team as far as parenting goes. My dad lived by example. As we became teenagers, when we misbehaved, especially my brothers, he would ask them where they learned that bad behavior from. He would say, definitely not from me, go and ask around. And yes, I can vouch for him. Even when my dad drank, I've never seen him drunk. But he gave up alcohol a long time ago. You know how they say that every man must have a vice, something like that. Either women, alcohol, or cigarettes. But my dad will list all of those one by one and proudly tell you, I don't have any of those weaknesses. Not just his family members, lots of people could vouch for him when it comes to good behavior. My dad was diagnosed with dementia about 2 years ago. One of the first symptoms was memory loss. He struggled to follow conversations. That was when I traveled to Nigeria for my sister's wedding. Some of you saw that vlog. I mentioned to my mom that he was going off on a tangent sometimes. I also noticed that he had difficulty controlling his bladder. He would know that he wanted to pee, but he could not hold off till he got to the bathroom. I would see him holding it while rushing to the bathroom. So I started asking questions like, when did this start and all that? My mom confirmed that the lack of control of his bladder muscles has been going on for about 2 months at that time. But she wasn't really sure about the memory loss. In fact, she had not noticed it at that time because, when you live with people, you may not notice these changes because they happen so slowly. But when someone that knows the person comes to visit with fresh ears, fresh eyes, they will pick on it immediately. It's just like we don't notice how fast our kids are growing because we live with them, but people who see them only once in a while notice that. I hadn't picked up on that in our telephone conversations, but staying with them for a few days during that period, I noticed it immediately. So we went in for diagnosis and it was confirmed. And that started the slow decline in memory loss. He once went out and could not find his way home. So from then on, he was never left alone and he was not allowed to leave the house alone. I'm telling this story to help create awareness for dementia and Alzheimer's disease because there's next to no information about the symptoms in Nigeria. And with each passing day, more and more people show this condition in Nigeria. More and more people are dying of this condition in Nigeria. As I make this video, my dad is in the morgue, my friend's dad is in the morgue, and one of my dad's friends is in the morgue. These 3 men had dementia. The lack of awareness is so bad that when some senior citizens exhibit these symptoms, some of them are called witches and wizards. Yes, there are so many symptoms linked to dementia that the person's personality may completely flip beyond recognition. There was a time during the decline that my dad was so violent. He had the strength of 10 people. It started with stubbornness. This was my dad that was a very mellow human being that hardly raised his voice on anyone. To minimize him peeing on himself, my mom will remind him from time to time to go and pee. Being proactive about it, preventing him from peeing on himself rather than the cure, which was changing his clothes each time that happened. And he will be like, I don't have the urge to pee. I don't have the urge to pee. Leave me alone. And the next moment, he would pee where he was sitting and still be saying, I have not peed on myself. I have not peed on myself. A whole Chinyere like me cannot pee on myself. Chinyere is his Igbo ceremonial nickname. And a lot of times he would not agree to change his clothes afterwards, insisting that he did not pee on himself. Wear adult nappies, Kwano? No. He would be like, am I a baby? It was so frustrating to watch him exhibit this kind of unintentional stubbornness when all of us traveled to Nigeria in the summer of 2018. All these can be confusing for family members who do not know anything about dementia. We need to be on the lookout for all these if we have aging parents. You need a special kind of patience to take care of people with dementia. And then, much later, he became violent. He wouldn't just come and attack you, no. At that time, he already had difficulty getting up. So when one approached him to lift him up, either to go give him a bath or take him to the living room, or anything that involved a change of position, he would bring out his fangs and shine his eyes and start shouting, "They are coming for me, leave me alone, leave me alone." At that stage, he saw every approach into his personal space as an attack, so he was all ready to defend himself with this strength that nobody knew where he got from. My mom would be pleading with him, reassuring him, reminding him, "This is your wife," and all that. Sometimes they video called me to talk to him. He would finally mellow after a lot of people must have spoken to him and reassured him. Yes, it was shocking that someone who could not move around on his own would have that kind of strength. So I see how those who are ignorant of this condition would call the patient all sorts of names. Yeah, especially in our country where religion has twisted some people's way of thinking so much that they immediately jump to witches and wizards and village people conclusions when it's a medical condition. By 1 year later, that's early 2019, he was going in and out of hospital. I talked about this in my first video of last year. By the middle of last year, when I traveled to Nigeria, he could not remember the most basic things. He would recognize only close family members. If you remember, in one of my village vlogs, he knew who I was, but he neither knew where I came from nor where I was going back to when I went to say goodbye to him. And from then on, his condition deteriorated quickly. By Christmas 2019, he had to be fed. He could not make sentences, just a few words here and there. By the third week of February, he could not move at all. He had to be carried everywhere. Before then, he could move if you held him firmly and let him. He will be making one step at a time, slowly but surely. But by that third week of February, he needed to be carried by at least 2 people to put him on his wheelchair. I don't want to go into all the details, but you know where this is going. Yeah. By the last week of February, he stopped talking completely. He stopped eating. He couldn't even move his fingers. We took him to the hospital so they would see what they could do. There were plans to install a feeding tube for him, and that's where he was till he passed on peacefully in the early hours of March the 2nd. He was 84 years old. He came into this world, lived a peaceful life, and departed peacefully. We are currently making burial arrangements. May I ask that you put us all in your prayers, especially my mom. She's the hardest hit of us all. He was her soulmate, and in their retirement, they were known to go everywhere hand in hand. She will miss him the most. I can't imagine her life without him. It will be very difficult. She has got us her children, but yeah, it will be very difficult. Ta-da! Madre mia. Fucking hell. So that's my chest of drawers done, ready to start its job of hiding my sins. No more piles of clothes, hopefully. Thank you all for listening and allowing me offload a few memories of my father on you. I've cried, I've been sad, but I'm fine now, knowing that he was a good man and lived an upright life. He'll be greatly missed. Bye-bye, Daddy, till we meet again.